I found my son sleeping in a frozen car with my twin grandsons in the middle of a Chicago blizzard. I smashed the window with a tire iron and dragged him out by his collar. "Where is the $150,000 I gave you last month?" He looked at me with eyes so hollow they scared me. "She took it, Dad. Vanessa took everything. She says I am insane. She got a restraining order." My blood turned to ice not from the weather, but from a rage I had not felt since I retired. I looked at my shivering grandsons. "Get in the truck. We are fixing this tonight." My name is Conrad Sullivan. I am 72 years old. I spent 40 years building a logistics empire that moves freight across every highway in America. I know how to spot a bad deal. I know how to spot a liar. But I missed the snake sleeping in my son's bed. Until tonight. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to step in when someone hurt your family. The wind off Lake Michigan was cutting through my heavy wool coat like a razor blade. It was 2 a.m. at the O'Hare Airport long-term parking lot. The thermometer on my dashboard read 20 degrees below zero. Most people were home buried under electric blankets. But I was here tracking the GPS signal of a 2010 Ford Explorer that should have been in a heated garage in the suburbs. I stepped out of my truck. The snow was knee-deep. The wind howled, drowning out the distant roar of jet engines. I walked down row G, scanning license plates. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a rhythm of fear I refused to acknowledge. I found the car in the back corner buried under a foot of fresh snow. It looked like a white tomb. The engine was off, no exhaust, no heat. I wiped the frost from the driver's side window with my gloved hand. What I saw stopped my breath. My son Bennett, 32 years old, a software engineer who used to have a bright smile and a firm handshake. Now he was slumped against the steering wheel wearing 3 layers of hoodies, his skin a terrifying shade of gray. But it was the back seat that broke me. My grandsons. Leo and Toby, 5 years old. They were huddled together under a pile of dirty laundry and thin motel blankets. Their breath was puffing out in tiny, weak clouds. They were freezing to death. I didn't knock. I didn't call 911. I didn't have time. I ran back to my truck, grabbed the heavy tire iron from under the seat, and marched back to the Explorer. I aimed for the rear quarter window away from the boys. I swung with everything I had. The glass shattered with a sharp crack that echoed in the frozen silence. I reached in, unlocked the doors, and ripped the driver's door open. The air inside was colder than the air outside. It smelled of stale sweat, fear, and hopelessness. Bennett jumped, letting out a pathetic yelp, his hands flying up to cover his face as if he expected to be hit. "Dad," he whispered. His teeth were chattering so hard he could barely form the word. I grabbed him by the front of his jackets and hauled him out into the snow. He couldn't even stand. His legs gave way, and he collapsed, shaking violently. I leaned down, grabbing his face between my hands. His skin was ice cold. "Where is it, Bennett? Where is the $150,000? I gave you that check 4 weeks ago for your startup. Why are my grandsons sleeping in a parking lot?" He started to sob, a dry heaving sound that tore at his throat. "She took it. Vanessa. She said we were buying the house. She said we needed a joint account for the mortgage approval. I transferred it. And then it was gone." I felt a vein throb in my temple. Gone. Where? To her parents. To Gavin and Patricia. She said it was a loan. A family emergency. When I tried to get it back, she called the police. She told them I was breaking things. She told them I was dangerous. I looked at the car, at the 2 terrified little faces peering out from the blankets in the back seat. She got a restraining order, Dad. She kicked me out. She changed the locks. She said if I came back, she would have me arrested for violating the order. I didn't know where to go. The cards are canceled. My phone is cut off. The rage that filled me was cold and sharp. It was the kind of rage that builds empires and destroys enemies. I looked at my son, a man I had raised to be kind, to be gentle, and I realized his kindness had been weaponized against him. "Get the boys," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Leave the car. Leave everything. You are coming with me." The drive back to my estate in Lake Forest was silent. I cranked the heat up until the cabin felt like a sauna. In the rearview mirror, I saw Leo and Toby slowly unwrapping themselves from the blankets, their cheeks returning to a healthy pink. Bennett stared out the window at the swirling snow, tears freezing on his face. When we arrived, the house was dark. I didn't care. I turned on every light on the first floor. I wanted to see clearly. I wanted everything exposed. My housekeeper Maria woke up and rushed into the kitchen, gasping when she saw the boys. "Food," I ordered. "Everything you have. Hot soup, bread, meat. Now." We sat at the long mahogany dining table. The opulence of the room, the crystal chandelier, the oil paintings, the silk drapes felt like a slap in the face compared to the frozen car I had just left. I watched my grandsons eat. They didn't eat like children. They ate like starving animals. They shoved bread into their mouths with both hands, eyes darting around as if someone was going to take it away. Bennett sat with a bowl of soup in front of him, untouched. He was staring at the table, his hands trembling uncontrollably. "Start talking," I said, "and do not lie to me to protect her." He took a shaky breath. "It started a month ago, right after you gave me the investment check. Vanessa was so happy. She said this was our chance to finally buy the big house in Naperville, the one near her parents. She said we needed to show liquidity to the bank." I closed my eyes for a second. The oldest trick in the book: commingling funds. I deposited the check into our joint savings. Bennett continued. 2 days later, I went to pay the vendor for the server space. The transaction was declined. Insufficient funds. I checked the app. The balance was zero. Zero. $150,000. Gone in 48 hours. I asked her. I didn't even yell. I just asked her what happened. She started screaming. She threw a vase at the wall. Then she threw a lamp. She started screaming that I was controlling, that I didn't trust her. And the money, I asked. She sent it to Gavin, her father. She said he was in trouble with some investors. She said he would pay it back in a week. Gavin. I knew Gavin. A man who wore suits that were too shiny and drove leased cars he couldn't afford. A man who talked about business opportunities but never seemed to have a business. And when the week passed, I pressed. Bennett flinched. I told her I needed the money back. I told her the business couldn't start without it. That night I woke up to flashing lights. The police were in the bedroom. Vanessa was downstairs crying, holding a bruise on her arm. A bruise I didn't give her. She told them I hit her. She told them I was off my meds. She told them I was threatening the kids. The police gave me 5 minutes to pack a bag. They served me with an emergency protective order. She kept the house. She kept the car. She kept the accounts. And the boys, I asked, looking at the twins who had fallen asleep with food still in their hands. She didn't want them, Bennett whispered, the shame burning in his voice. She told the police I was kidnapping them, but when they asked her if she wanted to keep them there, she said she was too traumatized. She said she couldn't handle them right now. She let me take them because she didn't want the burden. She just wanted the house. I stood up and walked to the liquor cabinet. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, not for me, but for the fire in my gut. This wasn't just a bad marriage. This was a heist. A calculated, brutal extraction of wealth. She filed for divorce yesterday, Bennett said. She is asking for full custody, alimony, and half of my future earnings. And she wants the startup IP. She says since the seed money went through the joint account, the company is marital property. I downed the bourbon. It tasted like water. She thinks she is playing chess, I said. She thinks she took a pawn, but she just woke up the king. I looked at Bennett closely, really looked at him. He was thin, too thin. His eyes were darting around the room, unable to focus. His hands weren't just shaking from the cold anymore. They were twitching. "What is wrong with you?" I asked. "You look like a junkie." "I don't know," he stammered. "My anxiety. It has been getting worse. The allergies, too. I have been taking the pills Vanessa gives me, but they don't help. I feel foggy. I hear things sometimes. That is why the judge granted the order so fast. Vanessa brought my medical records. She showed them I was unstable." "Wait." I walked over to him. "What pills?" "Just my allergy meds, the ones I have taken for years. She organizes them for me in the weekly sorter. She is really helpful with that stuff." "Show me." He reached into the pocket of his dirty jeans and pulled out a plastic orange prescription bottle. It was labeled loratadine, 10 milligrams, a standard antihistamine. I took the bottle. I opened it and poured the pills onto the polished mahogany table. They were small, white, and round. They looked generic, innocent. But I spent 40 years in logistics. I know that details matter. I know that a shipping container label that is 1 millimeter off center means counterfeit goods. I picked up one pill and held it under the chandelier light. There was a tiny imprint on one side, a faint code. R33. I pulled out my phone. I didn't search for allergy medication. I typed in the code. The result loaded instantly. Clonazepam, 2 milligrams, a high-potency benzodiazepine, a sedative used for seizures and panic disorders, highly addictive. Side effects included confusion, paranoia, hallucinations, and drowsiness. I looked at the next pill, different code, risperidone, an antipsychotic. I looked at my son. He wasn't having a breakdown. He was being chemically lobotomized. "She isn't organizing your meds, Bennett," I said, my voice trembling with a fury so intense I could barely speak. "She is drugging you." He looked at me, his mouth open, his eyes wide and wet. "What?" "These aren't allergy pills. This is a cocktail of sedatives and antipsychotics. She has been feeding you drugs to make you look crazy, to make you weak, to make sure that when she called the police you looked exactly like the unstable monster she described." Bennett stared at the white pills on the table. He reached out and touched one, his finger shaking. She gave me extra yesterday, before the police came. She said I looked stressed. She said it would help me sleep. That explains why you couldn't defend yourself. That explains why you let her take the house. You weren't compliant, son. You were intoxicated." He put his head in his hands and began to weep. Not the quiet sobbing from before, but a loud, angry cry of a man realizing his entire reality was a fabrication. "She told me I was losing my mind," he choked out. "She told me I was forgetting things. She told me I was becoming aggressive. I believed her, Dad. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was dangerous to the boys." "You are not crazy," I said firmly. "You are a victim of a crime." I swept the pills back into the bottle and shoved it into my pocket. This wasn't just evidence for a divorce court. This was evidence for a felony trial. "Go upstairs," I told him. "Shower, sleep. Real sleep, not a drug-induced coma. Tomorrow morning we aren't going to the bank. We are going to war." I watched him lead the sleepy twins up the grand staircase. He looked like a ghost of the man he used to be. But he was alive, and he was home. I sat alone in the dining room. The silence of the house was heavy. I thought about Vanessa. I thought about her parents, Gavin and Patricia. I thought about the fake smiles at the wedding, the way they talked about unmanly values while eyeing the silverware. They thought they had stripped the carcass clean. They thought Bennett was a broken man sleeping in a car destined for a psych ward or a homeless shelter. They thought they had won. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 5 years. It rang twice. "Alex," I said. "Conrad." The voice on the other end was sharp awake even at 4 in the morning. Alexandra Cross, the most ruthless litigator in New York, a woman who ate hedge fund managers for breakfast. "I thought you retired." "I did. But I have a pest control problem. Talk to me. I need you in Chicago by noon. Bring the private investigators. Bring the forensic accountants. And bring the sharks." "What are we hunting?" "A family of grifters who made the mistake of trying to eat my son." I heard the smile in her voice. "I will fuel up the jet." I hung up the phone. I walked to the window and looked out at the snowstorm. It was still raging, burying the world in white. But inside me, the fire was just starting to burn. They wanted my money. They wanted my son's dignity. They wanted my grandson's future. They were about to learn that you don't steal from a wolf and expect him not to hunt you down. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, blindingly bright against the snow. I didn't sleep. I sat in my study mapping out the battlefield. At 8 a.m., sharp Bennett's phone, which I had charged and kept on my desk, started ringing. The caller ID said, "My love." I stared at it. The audacity. She kicks him out, steals his money, drugs him, and now she calls. I picked it up. I didn't speak. I hit the speaker button and listened. "Bennett, baby, are you there?" Her voice was sweet, sickeningly sweet. It was the voice of a concerned wife, the voice of an angel. "Bennett, please pick up. I am so worried about you. You ran off with the boys again. You know you aren't well. My mom and dad are here. We just want to help you. We found a place that can treat you. A nice facility. Please bring the boys home and let us get you the help you need." I listened closely. I heard the slight echo. She was on speakerphone too. I heard the rustle of paper in the background. Someone was taking notes or recording. They were building their case, establishing a pattern of concern for the unstable husband who kidnapped the children. I broke my silence. My voice was gravel. "Bennett can't come to the phone right now. He is sleeping." There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. "Conrad, is that you?" "Oh, thank God. We were so worried. Is Bennett with you? Is he having an episode?" The performance was Oscar-worthy. "He is safe, Vanessa. The boys are safe." "Oh, Conrad, you don't understand. He is dangerous. He needs medication. He needs to be committed. My father knows a doctor, Dr. Aris. He has a bed waiting for Bennett. You need to bring him to us. For his own good." For his own good. The same words she probably used when she handed him the poison pills. I looked at the bottle of pills on my desk. I looked at the bank statements Bennett had managed to print out before he fled. "I will bring him home, Vanessa." I lied. My voice was calm. Flat. "When he is feeling better, no." She snapped her mask, slipping for a fraction of a second. "You can't keep him there. He needs professional help immediately. If you don't bring him, I will have to call the police again. I have custody, Conrad. You have a piece of paper based on a lie, I thought." But out loud, I said nothing. I just hung up. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to flush him out. She needed him in that facility. Once he was institutionalized, his credibility would be zero. He would never be able to testify about the money. He would never be able to fight for the kids. He would be erased. I turned to the computer screen. My old contacts had been busy since I called them at dawn. The preliminary report on Gavin and Patricia was already in my inbox. It was a disaster, a beautiful train wreck of a financial statement. They were drowning. $500,000 in debt. Second mortgage on their house in default. Credit cards maxed out. Gavin had a gambling problem that he was bad at hiding. That was the motive. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. They needed Bennett's money to stop their own ship from sinking. But then I saw something else. A property transfer record. Dated 1 month ago. The house that Bennett and Vanessa lived in. The house Bennett thought they were paying a mortgage on together. It had been transferred. A quitclaim deed. Vanessa had signed the title over to her mother Patricia for $1. A gift. Bennett didn't own his home. He never did. He had been paying the mortgage on a house that belonged to his mother-in-law. The door to the study opened. Bennett walked in. He looked clean, but he still looked haunted. "Dad." "Who was on the phone? Your wife," I said. "She wants to put you in a cage." He flinched. "She is never going to stop, is she?" "No, she isn't. Because she can't afford to stop." I turned the screen so he could see. "Look at this, Bennett. Look at what you were financing." He leaned in, reading the report. His eyes widened. "They are broke, but Gavin drives a Porsche. They go to the country club. It is all leased. It is all credit. It is a house of cards. And you were the glue holding it together. That $150,000 wasn't for an investment. It was a bailout." He sank into the leather chair opposite my desk. "I feel so stupid. You were in love, and you were drugged. Don't confuse stupidity with betrayal." I stood up and buttoned my jacket. "Get dressed, Bennett. We have an appointment. Where we are going to see this Dr. Aris, the one who thinks you belong in a padded room. I want to see the man who sells diagnoses for cash." Bennett looked terrified. "Dad, if we go there, he will call the police. He will commit me." "Let him try," I said, picking up the small high-tech recording device from my drawer and slipping it into my pocket. I want to hear him say it. I want him to look me in the eye and tell me my son is crazy. Because before I destroy them, Bennett, I need to know exactly how deep the rot goes. And then I am going to burn it all down. The smartphone buzzed on the polished mahogany of my desk, vibrating like an angry hornet. The screen lit up with a photo of Bennett and Vanessa from their wedding day, smiling, happy, oblivious. The caller ID read, "My love." It was 8:15 in the morning. I held up a hand to Bennett. He was sitting in the leather armchair across from me, looking like a man waiting for a firing squad. His hands were gripping the armrests so tightly his knuckles were white. He made a move to grab the phone, a reflex born of fear and conditioning, but I stopped him with a sharp look. "Do not make a sound," I whispered. "Not a breath." I picked up the phone. I didn't swipe to answer immediately. I took a moment to compose myself. I rolled my shoulders forward. I relaxed my facial muscles. I let my jaw go slack. In my mind, I was no longer Conrad Sullivan, the logistics tycoon who crushed unions and hostile takeovers. I was just a tired, confused 72-year-old grandfather who simply wanted a nap. I slid my thumb across the screen and pressed the speaker button. I held the phone with a trembling hand, bringing it close to my face, mimicking the posture of the elderly men I played golf with, who couldn't quite figure out technology. "Hello," I rasped. My voice sounded thin, wavering. "Is this Vanessa? Conrad, is that you?" Her voice exploded into the quiet study. It was pitched high, laced with a frantic theatrical panic that was just a little too polished. It was a performance. "Oh, thank God," she continued, breathless. "We have been calling for hours. We were so worried. Is Bennett there? Is he safe? Please tell me he hasn't done anything to himself or the boys." I didn't answer right away. I closed my eyes and listened. I have spent 40 years listening to engines, to boardroom negotiations, to lies. I know what a room sounds like. I heard it immediately. The distinctive hollow echo of a speakerphone on her end. She wasn't holding the phone to her ear. It was sitting on a table. Then I heard the telltale scratch of a lighter and a sharp intake of breath. A smoker. Gavin. Her father smoked cheap cigars. I could hear the wet, heavy wheeze of his exhalation in the background, and then the clinking of ice against glass. It was 8 in the morning and someone was drinking. Patricia. They were all there. They were huddled around the phone like vultures, probably with a recording device running, waiting for Bennett to scream or for me to admit that my son had kidnapped his own children. They wanted sound bites for the judge. I leaned into the performance. Vanessa, I said, letting a confused stutter creep into my words. I don't know what is going on. He showed up here in the middle of the night. He was shouting about money. The boys were freezing. I am not sure what to do. I threw the bait into the water. By admitting Bennett was shouting about money, I was validating their narrative of his instability. There was a muffled sound on her end, a whisper. Then Vanessa spoke again, her voice dripping with condescending sympathy. "Oh, Conrad, I am so sorry you have to deal with this. We tried to warn him. He has been having episodes. He gets paranoid. He thinks people are stealing from him. It is part of his condition. Did he threaten you?" I looked at Bennett. He was weeping silently, tears tracking down his face as he listened to his wife diagnose him with a fiction. "No," I said slowly. "But he seems very agitated. He took some pills and fell asleep. The boys, they are running around the house. I am an old man, Vanessa. This is too much for me. I don't have the energy for 2 young children and a sick man." I heard a sharp intake of breath from Patricia on the other end. I knew exactly what they were thinking. The old man is crumbling. He is weak. He is a burden. He will give us whatever we want just to make the problem go away. "Listen to me, Conrad," Vanessa said, her tone shifting from worried to commanding. "You need to keep him there. Do not let him leave. My father knows a specialist, a Dr. Aris. He can help Bennett. We are going to come over and pick everyone up. We will take the burden off your shoulders." I let a long, weary sigh escape my lips. "I don't know, Vanessa," he said. "He said he didn't want to see you. He seemed very scared." "That is the illness talking, Conrad." She snapped, her patience fraying at the edges. "You cannot listen to him. He is not in his right mind. If you let him leave, you are endangering those children. Do you want to be responsible if he crashes the car? Do you want that on your conscience?" She was pushing hard. She was using fear. She needed him in custody before the drugs wore off, before he could make sense of the financial records. I need to think," I stammered. "I need to talk to my lawyer, or maybe the doctor. I am just so confused." "No lawyers," Gavin's voice barked from the background before he was shushed. Vanessa recovered quickly. "Conrad, honey, let's not make this a legal mess. We are family. We handle this privately. Just keep him there. We will be there in an hour." I paused. I needed to end the call before I broke character. I needed them to believe they had the upper hand, that I was a senile obstacle they could easily bulldoze. "I am going to take a nap," I said. "I will call you when he wakes up. Please, just give me some peace." "Conrad, wait." I hung up. I placed the phone gently back on the desk. I straightened my spine. The trembling in my hands vanished. The confusion in my eyes hardened into cold steel. Bennett was staring at me, bewildered. "Dad, why did you say that? Why did you tell them I was crazy? Why did you say you couldn't handle the boys?" "Because, son," I said, my voice returning to its natural, commanding baritone, "if you want to trap a wolf, you don't stand tall and brandish a spear. You limp. You look like easy prey. You make them confident." I tapped the phone screen. They think I am a senile old man who just wants his nap. They think you are comatose. They think they have already won. They are celebrating right now. They are drinking their morning cocktails and laughing about how easy it was to manipulate the Sullivan family. I stood up and walked to the window, watching the snow plow clear the long driveway. Their guard is down, Bennett. They are arrogant, and arrogance is the mother of all mistakes. Now wipe your face, we have work to do. Alexandra Cross does not knock. She arrives. At 11:45 in the morning, 15 minutes ahead of schedule, the heavy oak doors of my study swung open. She walked in like she owned the place, flanked by 2 junior associates who looked like they hadn't slept in a week. Alex was 45, sharp as a scalpel, and dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's cars. She didn't hug me. She didn't offer condolences. She just dropped a heavy leather binder onto my desk with a thud that echoed like a gavel strike. Coffee black, she ordered without looking at the housekeeper. Conrad, you look terrible, but you look angry. I like angry. Angry pays my bills. She turned her gaze to Bennett, who was sitting in the corner, still pale, still looking like a man who had survived a shipwreck, only to find himself on a desert island. And this must be the victim, she said, her voice softening just a fraction. Bennett, I am sorry your wife is a predator, but you hired the right exterminator. She sat down, crossed her legs, and opened the binder. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Alex was a forensic accountant with a law degree and a killer instinct. She treated financial records like crime scenes. We ran a full background check and asset trace on the entire family. She began tapping a manicured fingernail on a spreadsheet. Gavin and Patricia Miller, Vanessa's parents. To the outside world, they are retired academics living the good life. Country club memberships, a summer home in the Hamptons, a portfolio of investments. She looked up, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt. It is all a lie. A beautiful, hollow, rotting lie. They aren't just broke, Conrad. They are insolvent. They are effectively destitute. Bennett sat up straighter. But they have a house in Highland Park. Gavin drives a Porsche. Leased, Alex corrected. And the lease is 3 months overdue. The repo man has been looking for that Porsche for weeks. Gavin has been hiding it in a storage unit. She flipped a page. Gavin Miller has a gambling problem. And not the fun kind where you lose a few $100 at the track. He is a whale. Or he thinks he is. He owes $300,000 to the Horseshoe Casino in Indiana. He owes another $200,000 to private lenders. The kind of lenders who don't report to credit bureaus but do break kneecaps. I looked at the numbers. Red ink everywhere. It was a financial hemorrhage. They are drowning, Alex continued. They took out a second mortgage on their home 5 years ago. They defaulted 6 months ago. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings last week. They are 30 days away from being homeless. I leaned back in my chair. The puzzle pieces were slamming into place. The desperation, the sudden need for cash, the aggression. They weren't just greedy people wanting a better lifestyle. They were cornered animals fighting for survival. So they needed a bailout, I said. And my son was the bank. Exactly, Alex said. That $150,000 you gave Bennett. We traced it. It sat in the joint account for exactly 4 minutes. Then it was wired to an LLC called Miller Consulting. Sounds professional, right? It is a shell company owned by Patricia. From there, it was immediately wired to 3 different entities. The casino, the bank holding their mortgage, and a luxury car dealership to catch up on the lease payments. Bennett looked like he was going to be sick. They used my startup money to pay for his gambling debts. Alex nodded grimly. But that is just the appetizer. Here is the main course. She pulled a single document from the back of the binder. It was a property deed, a quitclaim deed. Bennett, tell me about your house. The one you and Vanessa bought 3 years ago. Bennett rubbed his temples. We bought it together. We put 20% down. I have been paying the mortgage every month. It is in both our names. Alex slid the document across the mahogany desk toward him. Look at the date. Bennett picked it up. His hands were trembling again. November 14th. That was last month. Read the transfer clause. Bennett squinted at the legal jargon. Grantor, Vanessa Sullivan. Grantee, Patricia Miller. Consideration, $1. He looked up, confusion clouding his eyes. I don't understand. Why is Patricia's name on the deed? Because your wife gave her the house, Alex said, her voice devoid of pity, just cold, hard facts. Vanessa executed a quitclaim deed. She transferred the title of the property to her mother as a gift. But she can't do that, Bennett shouted, standing up. My name is on the mortgage, I pay for it. Your name is on the debt. Bennett. Not the deed. Alex stood up and walked over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. I pulled the original purchase records. Vanessa handled the closing, didn't she? She told you she had a friend in real estate who could save you on closing costs. Bennett nodded slowly. She never put you on the title, Bennett. You co-signed the loan. You are liable for the debt. But the house, the asset, it was solely in her name from day one, and last month she quietly transferred ownership to her mother. The silence in the room was deafening. It was the sound of a man's life disintegrating. Why, Bennett whispered. Why would she give the house to her mother? Asset protection, I said, speaking for the first time. Alex nodded at me. Exactly. Gavin and Patricia are filing for bankruptcy next week. We found the draft filings in their email trash. By transferring the house to Patricia before the filing, they are trying to hide it. Or maybe they are just trying to keep it out of the divorce settlement. If the house belongs to her mother, it is not a marital asset. You can't claim half of it in the divorce because she doesn't own it anymore. She stole my house, Bennett breathed. She made me pay for a house that she gave to her mother. She stole your past, your present, and your future, Alex said. This isn't just a bad breakup, Bennett. This is a long con. They have been planning this for years. They saw you coming. A nice guy with a rich father and a trusting heart. You were the golden goose. Bennett collapsed back into the chair. He looked broken. He looked like a man who realized the woman he slept next to for 5 years was a stranger. I felt a cold, hard knot tighten in my stomach. This was worse than I thought. This wasn't just about money. It was about the absolute dehumanization of my son. They didn't see him as a person. They saw him as a resource to be mined until it was empty and then discarded. Is it legal? I asked Alex. Can she just give away the house? It is fraudulent conveyance, Alex replied, a shark-like grin spreading across her face. Transferring assets to avoid creditors or a divorce settlement is illegal. But we have to prove intent. And right now, on paper, it looks clean. She gifted it to her mother. Unless we challenge it, the house belongs to Patricia. Challenge it, I stood up and walked to the window. The snow was stopping. The world outside was white and clean. Inside it was filthy. I don't want to challenge it, I said softly. Bennett looked at me shocked. Dad. We have to fight for the house. No, I said, turning back to them. Boom. I don't want to fight for the house. I want the house, Mo, and I want them on the street. I looked at Alex. You said Gavin's mortgage is in default. The mortgage on their main house. The one in Highland Park? Yes. They are 60 days past due. The bank has already sent the notice of acceleration. Who holds the paper? Alex checked her notes. First National of Chicago. Why, I have done a lot of business with First National over the years, I said. I know the VP of commercial lending. We play golf. Alex's eyes widened. She saw where I was going. Conrad, you aren't suggesting— I want to buy the note, I said. I want to buy the mortgage debt on Gavin and Patricia's house. And I want to buy the mortgage debt on Bennett's house. Alex laughed. A dry, sharp sound. You want to become their creditor. I want to own them, I corrected. If I buy the debt, I control the foreclosure. I can accelerate the process. I can call the loan due immediately. You can. Alex agreed, her mind racing through the legalities. And since they are already in default on the Highland Park house, you can move to evict immediately. And Bennett's house, if Bennett stops paying the mortgage today, they will be in default in 30 days. Patricia can't pay it. She has no income. Then Bennett stops paying today, I said. I looked at my son. You are done paying for your own prison, Bennett. We are cutting off the money, all of it. But the credit cards, the utilities. Cancel them, Alex said. Mark them as fraudulent, or just report them lost. Freeze everything. I walked back to the desk and leaned over the binder. They want to play games with deeds and titles. Fine. I will play the game with the one thing they don't have. Capital. Alex, call the bank. Tell them I want to buy the distressed assets of Gavin and Patricia Miller. Offer them full value. Cash. Today. I want those mortgage papers on my desk by tonight. Consider it done, Alex said, pulling out her phone. And one more thing, I added. What? Look into this Dr. Aris, the one who wants to commit Bennett. If he is part of this, if he is taking money to drug my son, I don't just want him sued. I want his medical license. I want him in a cell. Alex nodded. I have a PI sitting outside his office right now. We will find the dirt. She walked out of the room, phone already to her ear, barking orders to her team. I looked at Bennett. He was staring at the quitclaim deed, his finger tracing the signature. His wife's signature. She never loved me, did she? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I walked around the desk and put my hand on his shoulder. It doesn't matter anymore, son. What matters is that she picked a fight with the wrong family. I looked at the clock. It was noon. Go check on the boys, I said, and then get some rest. Tonight, we are going to celebrate. Celebrate what? We are going to celebrate becoming the landlords of your in-laws. Dr. Aris's private practice was located on the 4th floor of a medical building that smelled of lavender and expensive insurance premiums. The waiting room was decorated in calming beiges and creams with soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. It was designed to make you feel safe. It was designed to make you trust the man behind the door. I knew better. I wasn't walking into a doctor's office. I was walking into a shark tank. I adjusted my collar and leaned heavily on the cane I had dug out of the attic. I didn't need a cane. My knees were fine. But the cane was a prop. It made me look frail. It made me look like a man who was past his prime, a man who could be easily manipulated. I practiced a tremor in my right hand as I approached the receptionist. I have an appointment, I said, my voice quavering just enough. Conrad Sullivan. I am here about my son Bennett. The receptionist didn't even look up from her screen. Go right in, Mr. Sullivan. The doctor is expecting you. Dr. Aris was younger than I expected. Maybe 40. He was handsome in a slick television doctor sort of way. His white coat was starched stiff, and beneath it I could see the collar of a shirt that cost more than my first car. He was sitting behind a glass desk that had nothing on it but a laptop and a Mont Blanc pen. Mr. Sullivan, he said, standing up and offering a hand that felt too smooth, too soft. I am so glad you came. Vanessa called me. She told me the situation has escalated. I shook his hand weakly and collapsed into the chair opposite him, letting out a long, ragged sigh. It is a nightmare, doctor, I said, rubbing my face with my trembling hand. I don't know what to do. He showed up at my house in the middle of the night. He was shouting. He was hallucinating. He terrified his children. I am 72 years old. I can't have a violent man in my house. Eris nodded sympathetically. He leaned forward, his face arranging itself into a mask of professional concern. I understand completely. I have been treating Bennett for months. His decline has been rapid. We tried outpatient therapy. We tried medication. But it seems he has become resistant. Or perhaps non-compliant. He opened a file on his desk. It was thin. Too thin for a patient with a complex diagnosis. I am worried about the safety of the family. Iris continued, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. People with Bennett's profile. They can be unpredictable. Snap decisions. Sudden violence. Vanessa is terrified. And frankly, Mr. Sullivan, you should be too. I looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. What can I do, doctor? I can't kick him out on the street. He is my son. Of course not, Iris said smoothly. We don't want him on the street. We want him somewhere safe. Somewhere he can get the intensive care he needs. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a glossy brochure. He slid it across the glass surface. Serenity Springs, he said. It is a residential treatment facility about 2 hours north of here. State-of-the-art. 24-hour monitoring. They specialize in difficult cases. I am on the board of directors. I picked up the brochure. It looked like a resort, but I knew what it was. It was a warehouse for inconvenient people, a place where you could pay to have someone medicated into oblivion and forgotten. Is it secure? I asked. Very, Eris assured me. Once he is admitted, he cannot leave without a medical discharge, and given his condition, that could take months, maybe years. It is a closed campus, no phones, no internet, complete isolation to focus on healing. It sounded like a prison where you pay the guards to keep you locked up. And the cost, I asked. Iris waved a hand dismissively. It is not cheap, 20,000 a month. But for a man of your means, Trojan, surely the safety of your grandchildren is worth it. And I can expedite the admission. Usually there is a waiting list, but I can make a call. We can have a van pick him up at your house tonight. Tonight? He was eager. Too eager. I hesitated. I need to be sure, doctor. Vanessa said. She said he might need a guardian. Someone to sign the papers if he refuses to go. Eris nodded enthusiastically. Yes. That would be ideal. If you and Vanessa petition for emergency guardianship, we can bypass his consent entirely. I have already prepared the medical affidavit certifying his incapacity. I just need to sign it. He tapped the Mont Blanc pen on the desk. But Mr. Sullivan, these things, they require a certain administrative fee. To process the paperwork quickly. To clear the bed at Serenity Springs. I looked at him. There it was. The shakedown. He wasn't just referring to the tuition. He wanted cash. I understand, I said, reaching into my jacket pocket. I pulled out my checkbook. I fumbled with it, letting my hands shake violently. I dropped the pen. It rolled under his desk. Oh, clumsy me, I muttered. My arthritis? Don't worry, let me get it, Iris said, starting to stand up. No, I insisted, leaning down painfully. I can get it. I ducked my head under the lip of the glass desk. Hidden from his view by the modesty panel, I reached into my other pocket. I pulled out a black disc no larger than a quarter. It was a high-powered listening device Alex had given me. I pressed it against the underside of the metal frame of his desk. It stuck instantly. I grabbed the pen and groaned as I pulled myself back up into the chair. Here we go, I wheezed. I opened the checkbook. How much for the administrative fee, I asked. 5,000, Aris said without blinking. Cash is preferred for speed, but a check will do for now. Make it out to Aris Consulting. Consulting. Just like Patricia's shell company. I wrote the check. $5,000. A small price to pay for the evidence that would destroy him. I tore it out and handed it to him. He took it, his eyes scanning the numbers greedily. He smiled. A real smile this time. A predator who had just eaten. You are doing the right thing, Conrad, he said, dropping the doctor title. Bennett is a lost cause. The best thing you can do is lock him away and let Vanessa move on with her life. She deserves better. I felt a surge of bile in my throat. This man was discussing my son like he was a broken appliance. When can the van come? I asked. I will call them now, Aris said, pocketing the check. Have him ready by 6. Sedate him if you have to. Do you have the pills I prescribed? Yes, I lied. Give him 3. It will make the transport easier. No fuss. No scene. I stood up, leaning on the cane again. Thank you, Doctor. You have been very helpful. Anytime, Mr. Sullivan. We are all just trying to do what is best for the family. I walked out of the office. The receptionist smiled at me as I passed. I limped all the way to the elevator. But the moment the metal doors slid shut and I was alone, I straightened up. I hooked the cane over my arm. I looked at my reflection in the polished steel doors. My eyes were hard. My hands were steady. You want him sedated, I thought. You want him locked away so you can keep collecting your kickbacks. I pulled out my phone and texted Alex. The bug is planted. He took the check. He admitted to the guardianship scheme. Her reply came 10 seconds later. Got it. The feed is live. We are recording. I walked out of the building into the cold winter air. I took a deep breath. It smelled clean. Unlike the rot I had just left upstairs, Dr. Aris thought he was sending a van to collect a prisoner. He didn't know he had just signed his own arrest warrant. I wasn't going to send Bennett to Serenity Springs, but I had a feeling Dr. Aris might be needing a lawyer very soon. I got into my truck and started the engine. Phase 1 was complete. I had the motive. I had the method. Now it was time to bait the trap for the rest of the pack. It was time to give Vanessa exactly what she wanted. Total surrender. Or so she would think. Back in the library, the mood had shifted from investigative to predatory. Alex Cross stood by the fireplace, the flames reflecting in her eyes. She held a crystal tumbler of sparkling water, looking less like a lawyer and more like a general surveying a map of the invasion. We have the doctor, she said, her voice crisp. The recording is admissible. He accepted a bribe. He admitted to falsifying medical records. That is malpractice, fraud, and conspiracy. He is finished. She took a sip of water. But Vanessa and her parents. The house theft is civil fraud. We can get the property back, but it will take months of litigation. They will claim it was a misunderstanding. They will claim Bennett agreed to it during a lucid interval. We need something stronger. We need something that puts them in handcuffs, not just in debt. I sat behind my desk, my fingers steepled. The $150,000, I said. The seed money. Alex nodded. Exactly. She moved it electronically, from the joint account to her mother's shell company. That is wire fraud. It is a federal crime, punishable by up to 20 years in prison. But to make it stick, we need to prove it wasn't a domestic dispute. We need to prove it was part of a larger criminal enterprise to defraud Bennett. We need to prove intent, I said. Yes. We need to prove that her motivation for declaring him insane isn't safety. It is profit. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. I pulled out an old leather binder. It was empty, but it looked important. It looked expensive. Let's give them a motive, I said. Let's give them a prize so big they forget to be careful. Alex raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? A trust fund, I said. A legacy trust. $2 million. Bennett doesn't have a trust fund, Alex noted. They don't know that. They think I am a retired tycoon sitting on a mountain of cash. I tapped the leather binder. Draft a document, Alex. The Sullivan Family Revocable Trust. $2 million in assets. Beneficiary Bennett Sullivan. But include a contingency clause. A specific clause regarding capacity. I saw the realization dawn on her face. A slow, shark-like smile spread across her lips. If the primary beneficiary is deemed mentally incompetent, she said, finishing my thought control of the trust. Assets transfers to his legal guardian. Exactly, I said. His wife. It is a honeypot, Alex said, setting her glass down. If we show them this document, they will rush to finalize the commitment papers. They will rush to get Dr. Aris to sign the affidavit. They will need him legally declared insane to access the $2 million. And in doing so, I said they will document their own crime. They will prove that the medical diagnosis is a financial transaction. It connects the doctor, the wife, and the parents in a single conspiracy to commit grand larceny. Alex walked over to her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I will draft the trust instrument. It will look real. Watermarks, embossed seals. It will look like the golden ticket they have been dreaming of. And the wire fraud, I asked. I am already subpoenaing the bank records for Miller Consulting, Alex said without looking up. Once we link the $150,000 to Gavin's gambling debts and link the house transfer to Patricia, we have a RICO case. Racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. We aren't just suing them, Conrad. We are dismantling them. I stood up. Good. Get the papers ready. I am going to make the call. I am going to tell Vanessa that I am too old for this fight. I am going to tell her I am ready to surrender. I walked to the window. The sun was setting, casting long, dark shadows across the snow. They want my son's mind. They want my money. I am going to invite them into the lion's den and let them think they are the ones holding the whip. I poured myself a glass of lukewarm water and sat in the worn leather chair by the fireplace. The fire had died down to embers mirroring the performance I was about to give. I needed to sound defeated. I needed to sound like a man whose world had shrunk to the size of his own exhaustion. I dialed Vanessa's number. It rang once, twice. She picked up on the third ring, just enough delay to feign busyness, but not enough to miss the call she was desperate for. Conrad. Is everything all right? Her voice was sharp, laced with a predatory alertness. I let out a long, shuddering breath close to the microphone. Vanessa, I can't do this anymore. What do you mean, Conrad? What happened? He broke a lamp. I lied. Injecting a tremor into my voice. He was screaming about spies, about cameras in the walls. The boys were terrified. They were crying under the table. I am 72 years old, Vanessa. I survived a heart attack last year. I can't handle a violent man in my house. And the children, they need more than I can give them. I am too old to be a father again. Silence on the other end. Then the rustle of movement. She was signaling the others. The fish was nibbling. Oh, Conrad. I am so sorry, she cooed, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. We told you he was getting worse. It is heartbreaking, isn't it? Watching someone you love disappear like that. It is, I whispered. You were right. I see that now. He needs professional help. He needs to be somewhere safe. Of course he does. Dr. Aris can still arrange the transport. We can have him picked up tonight. I paused. This was the pivot point. There is something else, Vanessa. Something I need to discuss with you. Before he goes away. What is it, money? I heard the intake of breath. I heard the greed sharpen her focus. You see, I never told Bennett this, but I set up a trust for him years ago. A legacy trust. The Sullivan Family Trust. It was supposed to be for his future. For his children. A trust, how much is in it? She asked too quickly. $2 million, I said. Liquid assets, bonds, blue-chip stocks. 2 million. I heard a muffled gasp. Someone in the background dropped something. Probably Gavin choking on his gin. But here is the problem. I continued, my voice sounding weak and confused. The trust documents are very specific. The beneficiary must be competent. If Bennett is declared mentally unfit, if he is committed, the bank will freeze the assets. Unless what, Conrad? She pressed her voice tight. Unless there is a legal guardian appointed, someone who can manage the funds for his care and for the children. The trust allows for the transfer of stewardship to the spouse provided they have legal guardianship. I let the silence hang. I let the number $2 million dance in her head. I let her imagine the shopping spree, the paid-off debts, the new life. So, if I am his guardian, I control the trust, she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Yes, I said. You would be the trustee. You would have full discretion to pay for his treatment, to provide for the boys, to maintain the family's standard of living. I sighed again, the sound of a man surrendering his last weapon. I just want them taken care of, Vanessa. I am tired. I want to go to Florida. I want to retire. I don't want to deal with doctors and lawyers and courts. If you take guardianship, if you take the boys, I will sign over the trust management to you. I will sign whatever you want. Just take this burden away from me. Conrad, you are doing the right thing, she said, her voice trembling with excitement. You are being so generous, so sensible. We can take care of everything. We can handle the legal side. We can handle Bennett. Good, I said. Good. But we need to do this properly. The bank needs signatures, notaries. I can't travel. My hip is acting up. We will come to you, she practically shouted. No, wait. Not your house. Bennett might react badly if he sees us there. She was thinking fast. She didn't want to come to my turf. She wanted to control the environment. Why don't we do it at our house, she suggested. Bennett's house. He might feel calmer there. It is familiar. We can have the notary there. We can sign the papers and then the transport team can take him directly to the facility. It will be peaceful. It was perfect. She was inviting us into the scene of the crime. She wanted us in the house she had stolen. That sounds best, I agreed. Tomorrow is perfect. Noon. Bring the trust documents. Bring Bennett. We will have everything ready. Thank you, Conrad. Really, you are saving this family. No, Vanessa, I thought as I hung up the phone. I am ending it. I sat back in the chair, the exhaustion in my voice vanishing instantly. I looked at the blank leather binder on my desk. It was just paper and leather. But to them it was the Holy Grail. It was the answer to every prayer they had ever whispered to their dark gods of greed. They were going to sign their own confessions. They were going to do it with a smile. And they were going to do it for $2 million that didn't exist. I stood up and walked to the window. The moon was high and bright over the snow-covered lawn. Tomorrow at noon, the wolves would gather for the feast. But they didn't know the meat was poisoned. I sat in the darkened library of my estate, the blue light of my laptop screen, illuminating the glass of scotch in my hand. Alex Cross had not just brought lawyers. She had brought a team of digital forensics experts who could find a needle in a haystack of data. They had accessed the cloud account connected to the smart home system, in Bennett's former house. The camera in the living room meant to watch the twins was now watching the thieves. I watched them celebrate. It was grotesque. Gavin was pacing the living room, a phone pressed to his ear, or a glass of dark liquor in his other hand. He was wearing a silk robe that looked new. He was shouting, his voice boisterous and slurring. "Tell Rocco he gets his money tomorrow," Gavin bellowed into the phone. "All of it. Plus the vigorish." "Yeah, the ship came in. My son-in-law finally paid up. No cash. Wire transfer. I will be there by 5. Keep the table open for me. I am feeling lucky." He hung up and laughed, a wet hacking sound. He looked at Patricia, who was sitting on the sofa with a tablet. "We are back in business, Patty." The old man caved. 2 million. That covers the spread and leaves enough to get the Porsche out of storage. Patricia didn't look up. Her fingers were flying across the screen. I zoomed in. She was on a luxury travel site. "I am booking the suite at the Ritz in Paris for the spring," she murmured. "And I think we need new furniture for this room. This stuff Bennett bought is trash. I am ordering the Italian leather sectional, the one for 12,000. She tapped the screen. Purchased. I looked at the credit card alert feed Alex had set up on the side of my screen. It wasn't their money they were spending. They were maxing out the last of their emergency credit lines. They were burning through cash advances. They were spending the $2 million they thought they would do by noon tomorrow. They were digging a hole so deep they would never climb out. Vanessa walked into the frame. She was holding a bottle of Dom Perignon. She popped the cork, the foam spilling over her fingers. She didn't care. She laughed, licking the expensive wine off her hand. To mental incompetence, she toasted raising the bottle, and to rich, guilty fathers. They clinked glasses. The sound was sharp and clear through the speakers. "He bought it hook, line, and sinker," Vanessa gloated. He sounded so pathetic on the phone. "I am too old, I am too tired." She mimicked my voice, distorting it into a whine. "He just wants to go to Florida and die. Fine by me. Once we have the guardianship, we dump Bennett in the facility, and the money is ours." Gavin took a swig of champagne. "What about the custody papers? Did you send them?" "Not yet," Vanessa said, her eyes narrowing. "I want him to sign them in person, tomorrow, before the notary gets there." "Why?" Patricia asked. "Because I want to see his face," Vanessa hissed. "I want him to know he has lost everything. The money, the house, the kids. I want him to sign away his rights to Leo and Toby as a condition of the deal. If he wants us to take care of him, he has to give up being a father." "That is brutal." Gavin chuckled. "I like it." "It is insurance," Vanessa corrected. "If he signs away custody, he can never challenge us later. He can never say we kept the kids from him. He gave them up, voluntarily. It makes the guardianship look like mercy." She pulled out her phone. I watched on the screen as my own phone on the desk buzzed. I answered, keeping my voice trembling and weak. "Hello, Conrad. It is Vanessa." "Hello, Vanessa. Is everything ready for tomorrow?" "Yes," she said, her voice shifting instantly to the concerned angel. "We have the notary. Dr. Aris is arranging the transport team. But there is one small administrative detail we need to handle first." "What is it?" "The boys," she sighed. "Since I will be Bennett's guardian, and I am taking full responsibility for his care, my lawyer says we need to streamline the custody arrangement. It gets messy if Bennett still has legal decision-making power while he is indisposed." "What are you asking Vanessa?" "He needs to sign a voluntary relinquishment of custody. Just temporary, of course, until he gets better. It just gives me the authority to make medical and school decisions for Leo and Toby without needing his signature every time. It is just paperwork, Conrad. Standard procedure for the trust." Standard procedure. She was asking a father to orphan his children. I paused, letting the silence stretch. I needed her to think I was hesitant, but ultimately weak. If you think it is necessary, I mumbled. It is absolutely necessary, she insisted, her tone hardening slightly. The bank might hold up the trust transfer without it. We don't want any delays, do we? No, I said. No delays. I will tell him. Good. Have him sign it the minute you walk in the door. Before anything else. We want this to be smooth. I hung up. I looked back at the screen. Vanessa pumped her fist in the air. He agreed, she told her parents. He is bringing the sheep to the slaughter. I closed the laptop. My hand was shaking not from age but from the effort of not putting my fist through the screen. They weren't just content with stealing his money. They wanted to strip him of his humanity. They wanted him to sign a paper saying he was unfit, giving them total ownership of his sons. I picked up the intercom. Bennett, come down here. When my son entered the room, he looked different. The sleep and the food had helped, but it was the anger that had truly revived him. He stood straighter. His eyes were clear. What is it, Dad? They are celebrating, I told him. They are spending money they don't have. And they have one more demand. He stiffened. What? They want you to sign away custody of the twins. Tomorrow. Before they sign the trust agreement. Bennett's face went white, then red. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He went very, very still. They want my sons. They think it is the final nail in the coffin, I said. They think if you sign that, you can never fight back. Bennett looked at his hands. Hands that had built code, hands that had held his babies when they were born. He made a fist. I will sign it, he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. I looked at him surprised. You will, yes. I will sign anything they put in front of me. I will let them think they have taken my soul, because I want to see the look in their eyes when you open that door. I want them to feel the victory right before you cut their throats. I nodded. He was ready. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the bait. And he was lethal. Go get some rest, I said. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Bennett turned to leave, but he stopped at the door. Dad. Yes. Do you think they ever loved me? Any of them? I looked at the blank screen where I had watched them toast to his destruction. No, son. I don't. But they are going to learn to fear you, and that is worth more. The morning sun hit the snow outside, but inside my study the curtains were drawn tight. It was 6 a.m. on the day of the execution, but to the world it was just a Wednesday. I stood in the center of the room looking at my son. Bennett was wearing a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. He looked like an engineer. He looked like a father. He looked capable. Take it off, I said. He looked at me confused. Dad. The clothes, Bennett. Take them off, all of it. Put the hoodie back on. The one you wore in the car. The one that smells like 3 days of fear and frozen sweat. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the buttons. I threw the dirty bundle of laundry I had retrieved from the foyer at his feet. You are not walking into that house as Bennett Sullivan, the startup founder. You are walking in as Bennett, the broken man. The man who hears voices. The man who needs a keeper. If you look like you have an ounce of dignity left, they will get suspicious. They need to see a carcass. Slowly, painfully, he changed. He pulled on the stained gray sweatpants. He pulled the hoodie over his head. He didn't shave. I handed him a little bit of charcoal from the fireplace. Rub this under your eyes, I ordered. Make yourself look like you haven't slept in a week. He did it. When he looked up, the transformation was visceral. He looked hollow. Now show me your hands. He held them out. They were steady. cold but steady. No, I snapped. You are withdrawing from heavy sedatives. You are terrified. Shake. He tried. It looked forced. Bennett, listen to me. Close your eyes. Remember the parking lot. Remember the cold. Remember the look on Leo's face when he asked why Mommy locked the door. Remember the sound of her voice laughing with her lover while you froze. His hands started to tremble, a fine rhythmic vibration that traveled up his arms. His jaw clenched. Good, I whispered. Keep that. But relax your jaw. Crazy people don't clench. They slacken. Mouth open, eyes unfocused. Look through me, not at me. He let his jaw drop. He stared at a point somewhere behind my left shoulder. He looked vacant. He looked gone. I walked up to him and slapped him lightly on the cheek. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. Excellent. Now the walk. Don't march. Shuffle. Drag your feet. You are heavy. The air is heavy. Every step is a burden. He took a few steps. It was a perfect imitation of a man medicated into oblivion. When we get there, I said, pacing around him like a boxing coach, Vanessa is going to touch you. She is going to put her hand on your arm or your face. She is going to play the loving wife for the notary. I saw a spark of pure hot rage ignite in his eyes. His fists balled up instantly. Stop, I barked. Look at your hands. You made a fist. You want to punch her, you lose. If you show 1 second of aggression, she calls the police, and this time you go to jail for real. You cannot be angry, Bennett. You have to be pathetic. When she touches you, you don't pull away. You flinch. You shrink. You are a dog that has been kicked too many times. He took a deep breath, uncurling his fingers. I don't know if I can let her touch me, Dad. It makes my skin crawl. You will let her touch you, I said, grabbing his shoulders. Because every time she touches you, she is digging her own grave. She is documenting her manipulation. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small amber prescription bottle. I had emptied the contents and replaced them with sugar pills I had pressed myself in the kitchen using a mold. They looked exactly like the antipsychotics she had been feeding him. She's going to ask you to take your meds, I said. She will want to make sure you are sedated for the signing. She might even try to give you one of hers. You take this bottle out. You tell her I got the prescription refilled this morning. You insist on taking your own. I handed him the bottle. He clutched it like a lifeline. Pop 2 of them right when we walk in, I instructed. Chew them if you have to. Make a show of it. Let them see you need the crutch. I looked at the clock. It was time. The notary is meeting us there. The private security team is already parked down the street in an unmarked van. Alex is in the car behind us. Bennett looked at me. His eyes were clear again just for a second. What if they don't buy it? They will buy it, I said, opening the door. Because it is what they want to see. Greed blinds people, son. They are so hungry for that $2 million they won't see the trap until the steel jaws slam shut. I handed him his coat. One last thing. When she puts the custody papers in front of you, the papers that give away your sons. He went rigid. Do not hesitate. Do not read them. You sign them. You sign them so fast it looks like you are giving away a used napkin. You make her believe you don't care about those boys anymore. You make her believe you are too sick to love them. That is the moment she will lower her shield. That is the moment she will think she has won everything. He nodded. A single sharp motion. I can do it. Then let's go get your life back. We walked out to the car. He shuffled. He kept his head down. He looked like a man marching to his own funeral. But I knew better. I was walking next to a live grenade, and I was the only one who knew I had just pulled the pin. We were standing in the foyer, of my estate coats buttoned against the winter chill, ready to leave for the house of horrors. Bennett was fully in character. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes practiced into a vacant stare, his hands trembling with a feigned withdrawal. He looked like a man who had lost the will to live. But Alex Cross stopped us before we could reach the door. She held up her tablet. Her face was pale. This was a woman who had litigated corporate malfeasance that bankrupted nations, a woman who had seen the darkest corners of human greed, but right now she looked nauseous. Conrad. Wait, she said, her voice tight. You need to hear this. The bug in Aris's office. It just uploaded a new file. A phone call. 10 minutes ago. She pressed play. The audio crackled, then cleared. Dr. Aris's voice filtered into the marble hallway. It sounded frantic. Vanessa, I can't increase the dosage. His toxicology screen is already redlining. If we push any more sedatives into his system, we risk respiratory depression. He could go into cardiac arrest. Then Vanessa's voice cut through the static. It wasn't the sweet, concerned voice she used with me. It was cold. It was the voice of a butcher discussing a cut of meat. I don't care about his heart, Aris. I care about his mouth. He is still talking. He is still asking questions. If he opens his mouth in front of the notary and sounds coherent, we lose the trust fund. Do you understand? I need him vacant. I need him gone. But the liability, Aris stammered. If he dies in my care. You already took the bribe, Aris, she snapped. You are in this. Double the risperidone. Mix it with the benzo. I want him compliant. I want him drooling. If he wakes up tomorrow, fine. If he doesn't, well, grieving widows get control of the trust too, don't they? Just get the signature. The recording ended with a sharp click. The silence in the foyer was absolute. The grandfather clock ticked loud and heavy. Bennett wasn't acting anymore. He had gone deadly still. His face was the color of ash. He stared at the tablet as if it were a loaded gun. She wants me dead, he whispered. The words came out choked, like he couldn't quite believe the physics of the sound. She doesn't care if you die. Alex corrected, her voice hard as diamond. There is a difference. She prefers you alive and locked away because it is cleaner. But if you die, she did the math. She calculated the risk, and she decided your life is worth less than the $2 million. I felt a coldness spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the weather. This wasn't fraud. This wasn't a scam. We had passed the point of financial crime miles ago. This isn't a civil suit anymore, is it? I asked, my voice low. Alex looked at me. Her eyes were burning. Civil, Conrad. This is a conspiracy to commit capital murder. This is attempted poisoning. This is aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. She just authorized a lethal dose on tape. She admitted that his death is an acceptable collateral damage to secure the funds. She tapped the screen of her phone furiously. I am sending this to the assistant U.S. attorney right now. This changes the raid. We aren't just serving them with papers. We aren't just seizing assets. What are we doing? Bennett asked. Alex looked him in the eye. We are taking them down. The FBI isn't just observing anymore. They are bringing the tactical team. This is a kill box. I looked at my son, the man who had loved this woman, the man who had slept beside her, who had fathered children with her. He was vibrating with a rage so pure it looked like it hurt. Bennett, I said, grabbing his shoulders. Listen to me. He looked up. His eyes were wet, but they were furious. You heard her. She ordered the hit. Yes, remember that feeling, I said. Hold on to it. When we walk into that house, when she smiles at you, when she touches your arm and calls you baby, when she hands you a glass of water. Remember that she tried to kill you. I will, he said. His voice was steady. terrifyingly steady. "Use it," I commanded. "Do not let the mask slip. You are not Bennett Sullivan, the victim. You are the Trojan horse. You are going to walk in there, and you are going to look weak and sick and dying, and you are going to let them think they won, right up until the moment we bury them." Alex put the phone to her ear. "We are green," she said. "The federal warrant is issued. They are setting up the perimeter now." I opened the heavy front door. The winter air rushed in, biting and clean. "Let's go," I said. "The executioner is waiting, and he is hungry." The driveway of the house in Naperville was shoveled clean, the snow piled high on either side like white ramparts. It was a nice house, a colonial with black shutters and a manicured lawn hidden beneath the winter blanket. It was the house my son had worked 80-hour weeks to afford. The house he had painted himself. The house where he had assembled cribs for his twins. Now, walking up the concrete path leaning heavily on my prop cane, it didn't look like a home. It looked like a crime scene. Bennett walked beside me. He didn't look at the house. He stared at his boots, dragging them through the slush, his shoulders hunched under the stained gray hoodie. He was vibrating. I could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. To anyone watching from the window, it looked like the tremors of a junkie or a madman. To me, it felt like a coiled spring ready to snap. "Steady," I whispered the words, barely a puff of steam in the cold air. "You are weak, remember. You are broken." He didn't answer, but he let his jaw go slack, his mouth hanging open slightly. It was a terrifying transformation. My brilliant, capable son had vanished, replaced by a shell. The front door opened before we even reached the porch. Vanessa stood there. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater and diamonds I had never seen before. She looked radiant. She looked like a woman who had just won the lottery. "You made it," she beamed, ushering us inside. The warmth of the house hit us, smelling of cinnamon and expensive red wine. "Come in, come in. You must be freezing." She reached out and took Bennett's arm. I saw him flinch, a visceral reaction to her touch, but he didn't pull away. He let her guide him into the foyer like a lost child. "Look who is here," she announced to the room. We walked into the living room. It had changed. The comfortable lived-in furniture Bennett had bought was gone. In its place was a white leather sectional that looked uncomfortable and expensive. The family photos were gone from the mantel, replaced by abstract art that screamed new money. Gavin was standing by the fireplace, swirling a glass of amber liquid. He was wearing a suit that was too tight, the fabric shimmering under the recessed lighting. Patricia was perched on the new sofa, holding a flute of champagne, looking at us over the rim of her glasses with a mixture of triumph and disgust. "Well, look at this," Gavin boomed, his voice slurring slightly. "The prodigal son returns," and he brought the checkbook. He laughed at his own joke, taking a heavy swig of his drink. He walked over to me, ignoring my outstretched hand, and clapped me on the shoulder, hard enough to make me stumble. I played into it, wobbling on my cane, looking frail and startled. "Careful, Gavin," Vanessa chided, though her eyes were dancing with amusement. "Conrad is fragile. It has been a hard week for him." "Hard week," Gavin scoffed. "He is fine. He is just old." "Aren't you, Conrad?" "Just an old man ready to pasture. Honestly, it is about time you stepped aside. You have been hoarding that money for too long. Let the next generation handle things. We know how to spend it better anyway." I lowered my head, staring at the floor. "You are right, Gavin," I wheezed. I am just tired. I want to make sure the boys are safe. Safe." Patricia scoffed from the sofa. She stood up and walked over to Bennett. She circled him like a judge at a dog show. Her nose wrinkled as if she smelled something rotting. "Look at him," she said, gesturing with her champagne glass. "He is disgusting. He smells like a homeless shelter." Bennett didn't react. He stared blankly at the wall, swaying slightly on his feet. Patricia leaned in close to his face. Hey, crazy, she said loudly as if he were deaf. Do you know where you are? Do you know who we are? Bennett blinked slowly. He looked at her, his eyes glassy. Patricia, he mumbled, his voice thick. Oh, he speaks, Gavin laughed. I thought the cat got his tongue. Or maybe the drugs ate his brain. He is medicated, Daddy, Vanessa said smoothly, guiding Bennett toward a wooden chair in the center of the room. A single chair positioned like an interrogation seat. Dr. Aris adjusted his dosage this morning. He is calm. He is compliant. Compliant, Patricia sneered. That is a nice word for useless. I always said he was weak, Vanessa. Even before he went crazy. He never had the spine to run a business. He was always just soft. A parasite living off his daddy's money. And now look at him. A drooling mess. She turned to me, her eyes cold and hard. You should have institutionalized him years ago, Conrad. You let this drag on. You put my daughter through hell living with a ticking time bomb. Honestly, we should be suing you for endangerment. But we are generous people. We are willing to clean up your mess. I gripped the handle of my cane until my knuckles turned white. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to strike her. They were in his house, drinking his wine, insulting him to his face while planning to murder him. The cruelty wasn't just incidental, it was the point. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed seeing him reduced to nothing. We just want peace, I stammered, playing the part. I brought the papers, the trust. It is all there. $2 million. Just take care of him. 2 million, Gavin whispered, the number hanging in the air like a prayer. He licked his lips. Put the papers on the table, Conrad, Vanessa ordered. I walked over to the coffee table and laid the leather binder down. Next to it, I placed the custody documents she had emailed me, and the notary I asked, looking around. He is in the kitchen, Vanessa said. Having a coffee. We wanted to have a moment as a family first, to make sure Bennett is ready. She walked over to the sideboard and poured a glass of water. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small pill case. I watched my heart hammering as she took out 2 blue pills. They weren't the ones from the pharmacy bottle. They were different. Stronger. The lethal dose she had discussed with Aris. Bennett, honey, she said, walking back to him with the water and the pills. You need to take your medicine before we sign. It will help you focus. Bennett looked at the pills in her hand. He looked at the water. This was the moment. If he refused, the game was up. If he took them, he died. I stepped forward, my hand shaking as I reached into my own pocket. No, Vanessa. I interrupted, my voice quavering. I got his prescription refilled this morning, like you asked. I have his pills right here. I pulled out the amber bottle with the sugar pills. He is used to these, I said. He gets upset if the color is wrong. Dr. Aris said consistency is key. Vanessa hesitated. She looked at the blue pills in her hand, then at the bottle in mine. She looked at Gavin, who shrugged impatiently. Just give him the damn pills so he can sign. Gavin grunted. Who cares what color they are? We have a reservation at the steakhouse at 7. Vanessa sighed, dropping the blue pills back into her pocket. She took the bottle from me. Fine, she said. She shook 2 sugar pills into her hand and held them out to Bennett. Here, baby. Open up. Bennett opened his mouth obediently. He placed the sugar pills on his tongue. He took the water. He swallowed. He did it with the passive obedience of a man who had given up on life. Good boy, Patricia murmured. Vanessa smiled at me. See Conrad. We know how to handle him. He just needs a firm hand. She turned toward the kitchen. Mr. Henderson, she called out. We are ready for you. A small, balding man with a briefcase scurried into the room. The notary. He looked nervous, his eyes darting between the expensive furniture and the disheveled man in the chair. "Let's get this over with," Gavin said, rubbing his hands together. "I can smell the money." Bennett sat in the chair, head bowed, waiting to sign his life away. But I saw his foot tapping, a tiny rhythmic tap against the hardwood floor. He wasn't medicated. He was counting down. And so was I. Mr. Henderson arranged the documents on the coffee table with the precision of a man who charges by the hour. He laid them out in 2 neat piles. On the left, the Sullivan family revocable trust agreement. On the right, the voluntary relinquishment of parental rights. The room went quiet. The only sound was the scratching of Gavin's lighter as he lit another cigar, blowing a cloud of acrid smoke toward the ceiling. He looked at the papers like a wolf looking at a trapped deer. "All right," Henderson said, clearing his throat. "We need to do the custody paperwork first. It establishes the guardianship framework required for the trust transfer. Mr. Sullivan, and I need you to sign here, and initial here." Bennett sat motionless. His head was lolling forward, his chin touching his chest. He looked like a marionette whose strings had been cut. "Bennett," Vanessa said sharply. He didn't move. Patricia let out a heavy sigh of annoyance. He is drifting again. He is useless. Vanessa grabbed the glass of water from the table. She swirled it, the ice clinking against the crystal. She knelt in front of Bennett, blocking his view of the rest of the room. She put her hand on his knee. It wasn't a caress. It was a grip. "Bennett, baby, look at me." He slowly lifted his head. His eyes were unfocused, staring past her left ear. He let his mouth hang open slightly. "I know you are tired," she cooed, her voice dripping with a fake sweetness that made my stomach turn. "But you need to drink this. It will help the pills go down. It will make the voices stop." She held the glass to his lips. She wasn't asking. She tipped it. Bennett sputtered, coughing as the water hit the back of his throat. He swallowed the sugar pills I had given him along with a mouthful of water. He let some of it dribble down his chin, soaking the collar of his stained hoodie. Patricia laughed. A short, cruel bark. "Look at him," she sneered from the sofa. "He can't even drink water like a human being. And to think we let him marry into our family." "He is pathetic," Gavin agreed, ash falling from his cigar onto the hardwood floor. "Just get him to sign the damn paper, Vanessa. I want to see the money hit the account before lunch." Vanessa grabbed a napkin and roughly wiped Bennett's mouth. She tossed the napkin onto the floor. "Okay, Bennett. It is time to be a big boy." She picked up the expensive fountain pen from the notary's tray. She grabbed Bennett's right hand. His hand was limp heavy. She forced his fingers around the barrel of the pen. "Hold it," she ordered. Bennett's hand trembled. He let the pen slip. It clattered onto the table. "Oh, for God's sake," Gavin shouted. "Tape it to his hand if you have to." I stepped forward, leaning on my cane, shuffling my feet. "Please," I wheezed. "Don't yell at him. He gets scared." "Shut up, Conrad," Patricia snapped without looking at me. "You raised this weakling. This is your fault. If you had disciplined him properly, instead of coddling him, maybe he wouldn't be a drooling mess." Vanessa picked up the pen again. She jammed it back into Bennett's hand. She squeezed his fingers over it, her nails digging into his skin. I saw Bennett's jaw tighten, a micro-expression of pain that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Bennett, listen to me," she hissed, her face inches from his. "Sign the paper. Give me the boys. If you sign this, you can go to sleep. You can sleep for a long, long time. If you don't sign it, well, the police are just a phone call away." "Do you want to go to jail, Bennett? Do you want the boys to see you in handcuffs again?" Bennett let out a low moan, a sound of pure, broken despair. It was the best acting I had ever seen. "No jail," he mumbled. "No police." "Then sign," she commanded. She guided his hand to the paper. The tip of the pen hovered over the signature line, the line that would legally declare him unfit, the line that would hand his sons over to a woman who viewed them as leverage. "Look at that shake," Gavin mocked, leaning in close. "He is vibrating like a washing machine. Maybe we should have given him 3 pills." "He is terrified," Patricia laughed. "He knows he is beaten." "Go on, Bennett. Do us all a favor. Give up. You were never good enough for her anyway." Bennett's hand shook violently. The pen tapped against the paper, leaving erratic dots of black ink. He looked up at me. His eyes were wide, pleading, terrified. It was the look of a man drowning. "Dad," he whispered. I looked at him. I looked at the pen. I looked at the 3 vultures circling him, their eyes bright with greed and malice. They were enjoying this. They weren't just winning, they were feasting on his degradation. "It is okay, son," I said softly. "Just do what she says. It will all be over soon." Vanessa smiled, a triumphant, predatory smile. "See? Even your daddy knows you are finished. Sign it, Bennett. Be a good boy and sign it." Bennett looked down at the paper. He stopped shaking. He took a deep breath. He pressed the pen to the paper. The ink began to flow. Gavin leaned forward, practically salivating. Patricia stopped drinking. Vanessa held her breath. They were watching the signature. They were watching the money. They weren't watching me. I straightened my back. I dropped the cane. It hit the floor with a loud clatter that echoed through the silent room. Bennett stopped writing. He didn't sign his name. He drew a single sharp line through the document, tearing the paper. Vanessa gasped. "What are you doing?" Bennett looked up. The vacancy was gone from his eyes. The tremor was gone from his hands. He looked at his wife with a clarity that was colder than the blizzard outside. "I am not signing, Vanessa," he said, his voice steady and strong. "And I am not taking your pills." Before she could react, before Gavin could shout, I stepped forward. My voice wasn't wheezing anymore. It was the voice that had commanded fleets of trucks and broken strikes. "Step away from my son, Vanessa, or I will break your arm." The silence in the room was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off, before the screaming starts. Vanessa stood frozen, her hand still reaching for Bennett. Gavin's mouth was open, the cigar ash falling unnoticed onto his expensive new rug. Patricia blinked rapidly behind her glasses, her brain unable to process the image of the trembling, broken man, suddenly sitting upright with eyes like flint. "What is this?" Gavin growled, his voice breaking the spell. He took a step toward me, his face flushing a dangerous shade of purple. "What the hell is going on? Pick up that cane, old man!" And Bennett signed the damn paper before I lose my temper. I laughed. It was a low, dry sound. I stood to my full height. I rolled my shoulders back, shedding the hunch I had carried for 3 days. I looked Gavin in the eye. I didn't blink. I didn't waver. "You don't have a temper, Gavin," I said, my voice filling the room without effort. "You have a gambling addiction and a leased Porsche you can't afford. Sit down." Gavin stopped. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. He saw the cold calculation in my eyes. He saw the predator he had mistaken for prey. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am the man who owns your debt," I said. Vanessa realized it first. She was smarter than her parents. She backed away from Bennett, her eyes darting to the door, then to the window. She was calculating an exit. "It is a trap," she hissed. "Daddy, do something." Gavin lunged for the phone on the side table. "I wouldn't do that," I said calmly. He grabbed the receiver. He dialed 911. He shouted into the mouthpiece. "I have intruders. I have a crazy man in my house. Send the police." I watched him. I waited. "They are already here, Gavin," I said. He slammed the phone down. "Get out. All of you, get out of my house." "It is not your house," Bennett said. He stood up from the chair. He wasn't the shuffling, broken man anymore. He was tall, he was angry, and he was holding the bottle of sugar pills in his hand. "You stole this house," Bennett said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "You stole my money, you stole my life, and you tried to steal my mind." Vanessa laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "You are delusional, Bennett. Look at you. You are off your meds. You are hallucinating. No one will believe you. We have the doctor. We have the records. You are insane." I walked over to the coffee table. I picked up the leather binder, the one that was supposed to hold the keys to their kingdom, the one they thought contained $2 million. "You are right about one thing, Vanessa," I said. I lied. Patricia let out a gasp of relief. She thought I was confessing to a bluff. She thought the money was still real. "I knew it," she breathed. "I knew he was faking." "Just give us the check, Conrad. Let's end this charade. We will take care of Bennett. We promise. Just give us the money." I opened the binder. I turned it upside down and shook it. Nothing fell out. No check. No bonds. No trust agreement. Just empty leather pockets. "There is no trust fund, Patricia," I said gently. "There never was." The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a corpse. What she squeaked. "There is no $2 million. There is no legacy trust. I made it up. I made it up because I knew you were greedy enough to swallow the bait without checking the hook." You fraud," Gavin roared. "You promised—" "We have expenses. We have plans." I looked at him with disgust. "You have crimes, Gavin. You don't have expenses." Vanessa stepped forward, her face twisted into a mask of pure hate. "Get out!" she screamed. "Get out before I kill you myself!" "That is the first honest thing you have said all week," I replied. I reached into my jacket pocket. I didn't pull out a checkbook. I pulled out a small black radio transceiver. I held it up so they could all see the red light blinking on top. "I told you I didn't bring a check," I said, "but I didn't come empty-handed. I brought this." I pressed the button on the side of the radio. "Now." The front door didn't just open. It exploded inward. The sound was deafening. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. The heavy boot steps of a dozen men hit the hardwood floor like thunder. "FBI federal agents, nobody move hands. Show me your hands." The room swarmed with black tactical gear. The red laser sights swept across the room, dancing over the expensive paintings, the leather sofa, and the terrified faces of the Miller family. Gavin tried to run toward the kitchen. A tackle from a linebacker-sized agent sent him crashing into the sideboard. Crystal glasses shattered everywhere. He was pinned to the ground before he could take a second breath. Patricia screamed and threw her champagne glass at an agent. He didn't flinch. He grabbed her wrist, spun her around, and slammed her against the wall. Vanessa stood in the center of the room. She didn't move. She didn't scream. She just stared at me. Her eyes were wide black holes of shock. Alex Cross walked in through the ruined doorway. She was flanked by the county sheriff and 2 detectives in suits. She stepped over the debris of the doorframe, her heels clicking on the floor. She looked at the chaos with the satisfaction of an artist admiring a finished painting. "Secure them," the lead agent shouted. I watched as they cuffed Gavin. He was weeping, begging, shouting about his rights. I watched as they cuffed Patricia. She was spitting curses, her makeup smearing her dignity gone. And then they came for Vanessa. 2 agents grabbed her arms. She didn't fight. She went limp. They pulled her hands behind her back. The metallic click of the handcuffs was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. Bennett watched her. He stood like a statue. He watched the woman he had married, the mother of his children, being restrained like a common criminal. Why, she whispered, looking at him. Why did you do this? Because you tried to kill me, Bennett said. Alex walked to the center of the room. She held up a folder. Vanessa Sullivan, Gavin Miller. Patricia Miller, she announced, her voice cutting through the noise. You are under arrest. For what? Gavin yelled from the floor, his face pressed against the rug. This is a misunderstanding. This is a domestic dispute. It is not domestic, Alex said coolly. It is federal. She opened the folder. You are charged with wire fraud for the electronic theft and transfer of $150,000 across state lines to pay gambling debts. You are charged with money laundering. You are charged with identity theft. She looked at Vanessa. And you, Mrs. Sullivan, you are charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Vanessa flinched. Murder. He is standing right there. Attempted murder, Alex corrected. We have the recordings, Vanessa. We have you ordering Dr. Aris to increase the dosage. We have you discussing the lethal toxicity. We have you admitting that his death was an acceptable outcome to secure the trust fund. Dr. Aris, I asked. In custody, the sheriff said, stepping forward. We picked him up 20 minutes ago. He is singing like a bird. He gave us everything. The fake medical records, the bribes, the text messages where you told him to make Bennett a zombie. Vanessa looked at me. The hate in her eyes was gone, replaced by a terrifying emptiness. You set us up, she whispered. I did, I admitted. I gave you the rope. You tied the noose. An agent pulled Gavin to his feet. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot and wild. You ruined us, he screamed. We have nothing. You are wrong, I said, walking closer to him. You had nothing yesterday. Today you have a federal indictment. I turned to the lead agent. Get them out of here. They are polluting the air. Wait, Patricia shrieked as they dragged her toward the door. The house, this is my house. You can't take us out of our own house, I looked at Bennett. He nodded. I reached into my pocket and pulled out one last document. I unfolded it. It was the mortgage assignment I had purchased from the bank the night before. Actually, Patricia, I said, you missed a payment. Well, you missed 12 payments. And since the title transfer was fraudulent, the bank accelerated the note. I held up the paper. I bought the debt this morning. I am the bank now, and I am foreclosing. I looked around the room. This isn't your house. It is mine, and you are trespassing. Take them away, I roared. The agents shoved them forward. I watched as they were marched out into the snow, into the waiting fleet of police vehicles. The neighbors were all outside watching. The cameras were flashing. It was over. I turned to Bennett. He was trembling, but not from fear, from the adrenaline crash. Are you okay? I asked. He looked at the empty doorway. He looked at the shattered glass. Is it real? He asked. Is it really over? It is real, son. Alex walked over and poured herself a drink from Gavin's abandoned bottle. Nice work, gentlemen, she said. I will head to the station to make sure the arraignment sticks. They aren't getting bail. Not with the flight risk and the tampering with a witness charges. She toasted us and walked out. I put my arm around my son. Let's go get the boys, I said. I think it is time we went home. To your house, he asked. No, I said. To this house. It needs a lot of cleaning, and we need to burn that furniture. But it is yours. We walked out into the cold, bright afternoon. The nightmare was behind us. The wolves were caged, and the Sullivan family was standing tall. The dust from the breach was still settling in the air, dancing in the beams of the tactical lights. The room smelled of drywall dust, expensive perfume, and fear. Gavin was on his knees, his silk suit ruined his face pressed against the floorboards he no longer owned. Patricia was weeping, a high, thin sound that grated on the nerves. Vanessa stood rigid, her hands cuffed behind her back, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for a hole in the fence. Alex Cross stepped into the center of the room. She didn't look like a lawyer anymore. She looked like a judge, jury, and executioner rolled into one. She held a thick document in her hand. It was the federal indictment. She didn't open it immediately. She let them wait. She let them sweat. She let the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Then she began to speak. Her voice was calm, precise, and amplified by the acoustics of the stripped room. Gavin Miller, Patricia Miller, Vanessa Sullivan, you are hereby charged under Title 18 of the United States Code. Gavin tried to lift his head. This is a mistake, he slobbered, his voice muffled by the carpet. We have rights. Call my lawyer. You don't need a lawyer, Gavin, Alex said, looking down at him with pure disdain. You need a priest. She flipped the page. Count 1. Wire fraud. Specifically, the electronic transfer of $150,000 from the joint account of Bennett and Vanessa Sullivan to the business account of Miller Consulting. Since the transaction crossed state lines to pay a casino in Indiana, it is a federal crime. That carries a sentence of up to 20 years. Patricia shrieked. I didn't do it. That was Vanessa. She sent the money. I just managed the books. I didn't know where it came from. She told me it was a gift. Vanessa whipped her head around, staring at her mother in disbelief. You told me to do it. You said if we didn't pay the casino, they would break Daddy's legs. You gave me the routing number. Alex ignored them. She turned the page again. Count 2. Money laundering. The attempt to conceal the source of the illicit funds by funneling them through a shell company to pay personal debts. That adds another 10 years. It was his idea, Patricia yelled, nodding frantically toward her husband. He has the gambling problem. I was just trying to save our house. He forced me. I am a victim of financial abuse. Gavin roared from the floor. You lying witch. You booked the trip to Paris yesterday. You ordered the furniture. You spent the money just as fast as I did. I watched them. It was pathetic. It was satisfying. The United Front, the loving family that had sneered at my son, had evaporated the moment the handcuffs clicked. They were cannibals, and now that the food was gone, they were eating each other. Alex walked over to Vanessa. She stood toe to toe with her. Vanessa tried to look defiant, but her lip was trembling. Counts 3 through 10. Alex read, her voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. Conspiracy to commit murder. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Medical fraud. Murder, Vanessa whispered. I didn't kill anyone. You tried, Alex said. And in the eyes of the law, the intent is just as damning as the result. We have the recordings, Vanessa. We have you telling Dr. Aris to overdose your husband. We have you discussing the lethal toxicity of the drug cocktail. We have you admitting that his death was an acceptable price to pay for the trust fund. No, Vanessa stammered. No, that was just talk. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. Dr. Aris says different, Alex said. He is in an interrogation room right now, cutting a deal. He says you threatened to expose his malpractice if he didn't help you remove Bennett. He says you were the architect of the entire plan. Vanessa looked at Bennett. My son was standing by the fireplace watching her. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked indifferent. He looked at her the way you look at a stranger on the subway. Bennett, please, she begged, tears finally spilling over. Tell them I wouldn't do that. I love you. We have children. Please don't let them take me away. Bennett didn't move. He didn't speak. He just slowly shook his head. Alex closed the folder with a snap. There is no bail for conspiracy to commit murder, she informed them. You are considered a flight risk and a danger to the community. You are going straight to federal detention. Do not expect to see the outside of a cell for a very long time." Patricia began to hyperventilate. "I can't go to prison. I have a heart condition. I need my medication." "You should have thought of that before you drugged your son-in-law," I said, speaking for the first time since the raid began. The lead agent signaled his team. "All right, let's move them out." As the agents hauled them up, the screaming started again. Gavin was cursing me, cursing Bennett, cursing the world. Patricia was sobbing, begging for mercy. Vanessa was silent, her eyes locked on the empty leather binder on the table, the symbol of the greed that had destroyed her. I watched them being dragged out the door, their feet dragging on the floor, their expensive clothes ruined their lives over. They had walked into this house thinking they were kings and queens. They were leaving as inmates. When the door closed behind the last agent, the silence rushed back into the room. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was light. It was clean. Alex looked at me and let out a long breath. That, she said, pouring herself a glass of water from the pitcher on the sideboard, is what I call a clean sweep. I looked at Bennett. "Are you all right?" I asked. He looked at the spot where his wife had stood. "She tried to blame her mother," he said softly. "And her mother tried to blame her father. And her father blamed everyone but himself." "That is who they are, son," I said. "That is who they always were." We just turned on the lights. Bennett walked over to the table and picked up the fake trust agreement. He ripped it in half. "Let them rot," he said. I nodded. "They will. But we aren't done yet. I have one more piece of paper to show them. One last nail in the coffin." I walked to the window and watched the flashing lights of the police convoy illuminate the snow. "They took everything from you, Bennett. Now I am going to take the roof over their heads. Even in prison, they need to know they are homeless." Wait. My voice cut through the chaos of the raid like a knife through silk. It wasn't a shout. It was a command. The federal agents paused, their hands firm on the shoulders of the Miller family. They were halfway out the door, the cold wind swirling around their ankles, but I wasn't finished. I wanted them to hear the rest. I wanted them to know that prison was only half of their punishment. "Bring them back to the porch," I said to the lead agent. "Just for a moment." The agent nodded. He signaled his team. They spun Gavin, Patricia, and Vanessa around, so they were facing me. They stood on the threshold of the house they had stolen, the house they had defiled with their greed. Patricia looked at me, a flicker of desperate hope igniting in her eyes. She thought I was going to offer mercy. She thought I was going to drop the charges. She thought there was still a deal to be made. "Conrad," she gasped, her chest heaving. "You can fix this. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. We will give the house back to Bennett. We will sign it over today. Just tell them to let us go." I walked toward them. I didn't need the cane anymore. I walked with the heavy, measured tread of a man who has crushed competitors for 4 decades. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and pulled out a single folded document. It was blue, legal size. "You can't give the house back, Patricia," I said softly. "Why not?" she pleaded. "We will sign the deed, right now." "Because you don't own it," I said. I unfolded the document and held it up. The wind caught the edges, making the paper snap. "This is a notice of assignment of debt." I explained, my voice carrying over the sound of the idling police cruisers. "You see, Patricia, when Alex ran your financials yesterday, we noticed something interesting. You accepted the quitclaim deed from Vanessa. You put your name on the title. You acted like the queen of the castle. But you forgot one small, critical detail." I stepped closer until I was inches from her face. "You didn't pay the mortgage?" Patricia blinked, confusion clouding her panic. "Bennett paid the mortgage." "Bennett stopped paying the mortgage 3 months ago when you stole his money," I corrected. "The loan went into default. And since the title transfer to you triggered the due on sale clause, the bank accelerated the note. The entire balance became due immediately. I tapped the paper with my index finger. I called the vice president of First National this morning. I bought the note, Patricia. I bought the debt. I paid off the bank in cash. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I am the lender now, I said. I am the bank. And as the holder of the note, I am exercising my right to foreclose. Immediately, I pointed to the ground beneath her feet. This isn't your house. It isn't Bennett's house anymore. It is my house. I own the bricks. I own the land. I own the air you are breathing. And you are trespassing. Gavin surged forward, straining against the handcuffs. You can't do that. We have tenant rights. You have to give us 30 days' notice, I laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound. Tenant rights apply to tenants, Gavin. You aren't tenants. You are squatters. And since the property was used in the commission of a federal felony, specifically wire fraud and money laundering, I have already granted the FBI permission to seize everything inside as evidence. I gestured to the living room behind me. That leather sofa you bought with my son's money seized. The electronics seized. Your clothes, your jewelry, that ridiculous Porsche you have hiding in storage. All of it. It is all proceeds of crime. I looked at Vanessa. She was staring at me with a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. You planned this, she hissed. You planned to leave us with nothing. I shook my head. I didn't plan it, Vanessa. I just finished it. You wanted to take everything from my son. You wanted to leave him homeless, penniless, and alone. I am just returning the favor. I turned back to the lead agent. Get them off my property. The agents shoved them forward. This time there was no hesitation. They were dragged down the steps, their heels scraping against the concrete. The neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, a silent tribunal of suburban judgment. They watched as the Miller family, the people who had pretended to be better than everyone else, were hauled away in cuffs. Wait, Patricia screamed as they reached the sidewalk. My purse, my wallet. I don't have any money. I stood on the porch, looking down at them like a king from his castle. You don't need money where you are going, Patricia, I called out. The state provides 3 meals a day. Gavin tried to kick the police car as they shoved him into the back seat. He was screaming obscenities, his face purple with rage. Vanessa went quietly, her head bowed, her hair hanging over her face. She knew it was over. She knew there was no coming back from this. I watched as the doors slammed shut. I watched as the lights flashed against the snow. I watched as the convoy pulled away, taking the parasites with them. For a long moment, the street was quiet. The neighbors stared at me. I didn't look away. I nodded to them a single sharp acknowledgement, and then I turned back to the house. Bennett was standing in the doorway. He was holding the twins. They were awake now, looking out at the scene with wide, confused eyes. Is the bad lady gone? Toby asked. Yes, I said, walking up the steps. The bad lady is gone. She isn't coming back. Bennett looked at me. You bought the house, he asked. I did. So. It is yours, I handed him the blue document. I bought the debt, son. But I didn't buy it for me. I am assigning the note to you. He looked at the paper, then at me. You are giving me the house, I am giving you a fresh start, I said. The mortgage is paid. The deed will be quieted in your name once the foreclosure clears. It is your house, Bennett, free and clear. No banks, no in-laws, just you and the boys. He started to cry again, but this time he didn't hide it. He hugged me, burying his face in my shoulder. The twins joined in, wrapping their little arms around my legs. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said, patting his back. We have a lot of cleaning to do. This place smells like cheap cigars and expensive lies. I looked over his shoulder at the empty street. The sun was beginning to set, casting long purple shadows across the snow. They were gone. They were broke. They were in prison. And my family was safe. "Let's go inside," I said. "It is getting cold. And I think we finally have reason to open a good bottle of wine." We walked inside and closed the door. The lock clicked shut. It was the sound of safety. It was the sound of victory. The snow is gone. The ice that choked this house for so long has melted away, replaced by the deep, vibrant green of a Chicago summer. I am sitting on the back porch of the house in Naperville. It does not smell like stale cigar smoke and desperation anymore. It smells of cut grass, charcoal, and sunscreen. Leo and Toby are running through the sprinkler in the yard. They are screaming, but it is the good kind of screaming. The sound of joy. The sound of children who know they are safe. They have forgotten the cold car. They have forgotten the fear. Children are resilient like that, provided you cut the rot out of their lives early enough. Inside, through the open sliding glass door, I can hear Bennett. He is on a conference call. He is pacing the kitchen, a cup of coffee in his hand. His voice is strong, authoritative. He is negotiating a contract with a logistics partner for his software startup. He isn't using stolen money funneled through a gambling addict's account. He is using a legitimate seed round that I led myself structured properly with lawyers who actually follow the law. He looks different. The hollow cheeks are filled out. The tremors are gone. He laughs at a joke on the call, and the sound is rich and genuine. He isn't the broken man in the gray hoodie anymore. He is the man I raised him to be. He is the man Vanessa tried to erase. I look down at the tablet resting on my knee. I have a notification from the Department of Corrections. It is a status update on inmate number 8940, Vanessa Sullivan. She was processed into the federal penitentiary 3 days ago. She is currently in orientation. She will be there for the next 15 years. Her parents Gavin and Patricia are in separate facilities. Gavin is already working in the laundry. Patricia is in the medical ward complaining about the food. They wanted to live for free. Now they are doing it on the taxpayer's dime. I swipe the notification away. I don't need to see her face. I don't need to hear her excuses. She is the past. A ghost story we will tell the boys when they are old enough to understand why their father has full custody. Bennett walks out onto the porch. He hangs up the phone and sits down next to me. He watches his sons running through the water. "We closed the deal, Dad," he says. "We are live in 3 states. "Good," I say. "Just make sure you read the fine print." "I always do," he replies. "I learned that the hard way." He leans back, closing his eyes against the sun. He looks peaceful. "Thank you," he says softly, "for not giving up on me, for seeing the truth when I couldn't see it myself." I reach over and pat his knee. "You are my son, Bennett. I would burn the world down to keep you warm." He smiles. "I know you would." I take a sip of my iced tea. The war is over. The weapons are put away. The enemy is vanquished. I look at my grandsons, their wet hair sticking to their foreheads, their laughter filling the summer air. This is what victory looks like. Not a bank account balance, not a big house. But this. The quiet, boring, beautiful safety of a Tuesday afternoon. I learned a long time ago that family isn't just about blood. It is about who stands next to you in the trenches. It is about who pulls you out of the snow when you are freezing. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had to fight for the people you love. My name is Conrad Sullivan, and I am finally retired. I used to believe that keeping the peace was the highest virtue a father could hold. I was wrong. Peace without justice is just submission. I learned that evil often wears a smiling face and calls you family while sharpening the knife. You cannot negotiate with people who view your kindness as a weakness to be exploited. If you find yourself standing in the cold, looking at the people you love being destroyed, do not wait for permission to act. Strike first. Strike hard. Because the only thing a predator respects is a force greater than their own greed. If you enjoyed this story of justice, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to cut a toxic family member out of your life to save yourself?